the bridge between fact and fiction, and the not just the bridge, but the actual them not being different things, essentially. Like they're not actually separate in any of the ways that we've been taught that they are separate, has been one of the most powerful things for me. I really like how often you invoke dream modalities as well. When we talk about dream travel, a lot of what we talk about is there's dream traveling while sleeping and there's dream traveling while waking. And when we're
Yes.
aware of dream modalities while waking, and we practice about, recalling our dreams and talking about them and processing them, but then also recognizing how we are present in the dream in our waking lives every moment, all the time, it really brings in a sense of much deeper connectedness with our own strengths and functions that we were misled about, we were gaslighted about in the world that we've come up in. But when we recognize that, it's like people really seem, not everybody, a lot of people seem to really need those steps. I needed those steps from the science, however we want to frame it, because I agree with you. The science construct is this whole set of conversations. But when people have those stepstones, sometimes it really helps them find their true selves, to get to have that interplay. And then there's a point where it's not necessary anymore. But I think a lot of people have the experience in their bodies of realizing that it's just that there's one story there, and there are all of these other stories that we're experiencing that have been repressed, that we can open up and we can find out what we really are all about if we delve into that. And I've been through a process like that where, in my states of most severe neurological injury, if I didn't provide scientific touch points for people I was talking to, it was really life-threatening, me engaging with anybody, me trying to
Mm.
communicate with anybody. But if I could provide research touch points, then I would be somewhat safer trying to get through that set of moments, because my body could be killed so easily. But then as I've rebuilt my neurological, my memory access, my functions, what I'm grounding in is the dreaming. What I'm grounding in is that there isn't actually a difference between my experiences dream traveling while sleeping versus dream traveling while waking. It's somewhat different because the physical world has a slower set of vibrations where things don't, that can't change things as quickly, in the waking world. Maybe not all the time, maybe some of the time. But it's the same process. It's just kind of a different set of environmental structures that I'm working with. I'm not totally sure how to verbalize it yet, but it's been a wonderful journey through all of that, getting to be accompanied by your materials, not only the nonfiction but the fiction. That's been so good.
Oh, that's very kind of you. I'm glad you're talking about the dreaming stuff because that's where I go at the end of the world cult and you, as I return to that and to the idea of the dreamscape and the idea that we are dreaming the reality and we have to learn how to dream another dream. This is the kind of shamanic aspect of this path that we really we cannot change ourselves, and certainly no way we can change the world if we can't learn to dream a new dream. And so understanding how dreams work, kind of what's going on there, how to interface with them, how to interact with them, how to cancel them, how to harness their power, and how to understand that you are in a kind of waking dream. All these are absolutely critical skills and they're intimately involved with the arts of storytelling and writing and other forms of creativity. It's all, in fact, practicing these types of creativity is sort of a way of practicing how to be a better dreamer. And because you're basically doing a version of the dreaming process when you're writing a book or a song or dancing or whatever it is that you're doing. It's why like these magical passes, these shamanic movements can be very helpful, because it can put you in the flow state for how dreams actually flow, and then you can begin to steer those things in different directions. So I get into all of this to some degree because I think it's really, really important. Um, there's a final thing I would like to just chat about briefly, which is related to this notion of the way that we're dreaming reality, and it's the way that the great parasite harnesses cult, either official or unofficial, to bring about various doomsday and apocalyptic scenarios, or at the very least to keep that discussion very much alive in people's consciousness so that no one can be at peace, no one can deluge and that kind of thing. But I actually think that there's an attempt to create the very scenarios that are being discussed by various doomsday cults, and they're harnessing the power of the cult, the combined loosh of the cult, these people giving that up to this agenda. I'm not saying that even the cult leaders are necessarily aware of this dynamic, but it's happening. And and so what appears to happen is that we're in this massive feedback loop where somebody gets an idea about how things are going to transpire in some kind of apocalyptic way based on whatever data, and they begin researching it. And what happens is the construct, the quote unquote reality construct, gives back more and more data to support that basic assumption. And before you know it, you have constructed a body of research and data to support this outcome that you're predicting will happen. And then people get behind it and they become part of your cult. And then you start siphoning their loosh, and through you, it flows on up to the great parasite, which is basically putting that mind installation into people all over the world. And it's seeding the very possibility of that outcome, which basically started out as something indistinguishable from an idea for like a short story or a novel in your head.
Yeah. I have so much to say about that.
I'm good to hear it.
Oh my gosh. I think that there are really natural, complex, I don't know how to say, complexes of feedback loops, landscapes of feedback, like feedback loop ecologies, that happen wherever there's a lot of energy going into something, a lot of information being organized. And that has been something that I've delved into a lot in terms of, if we find ourselves in a reality where we are really being kicked around in some really horrifying ways, how do we go about shifting that reality? Because we're here. What powers do we have? Where we focus makes a big difference. What we dream together makes a big difference. What we put our energy into makes a big difference. And I sort of think that the same modalities that make manifestation very powerful, not only for an individual, but in a group of relationships, in a collective body, manifestation can, you were just, there was something you were referring to in the book that I just read last night, and I was like, oh, I need to bring that up, but I don't remember what it was right now. That you were talking about, maybe the, oh no, it was digging a hole to China. You said if enough of the people think that you can dig a hole to China, maybe they'll actually end up being able to dig a hole to China. It was something like that. I hope I'm not misquoting you. I'm not really quoting,
Right.
but
I can harness the collective imagination or the dream ability to change the world, to change reality, to change physics, to
yeah,
change geology.
science.
Yeah. It's all just malleable, like everything else here. There's nothing that's real here. It's all Maya. It's all perception. It's just different speeds, like you were talking about with the waking state versus the dreaming state. And that's very shamanic. Those are different speeds. They're not different in essence, they're just different in speed.
Well, we're on a planet right now that has been so overwhelmed with trafficking methodology. There's so much cult infrastructure and trafficking infrastructure that's been installed on the planet. People have lost their sense of how powerful we can be when we put our intentions and our dreaming together purposely and honoring life energy, refusing to use trafficking modalities, because what we see most of the time is that these really powerful influences, like where the power has been consolidated and used to traffic populations, used to extract from populations, we see that kind of manifestational capacity being used to make things happen that we don't feel good about and we don't want to participate in. But once we remind ourselves that we have the power to put our energies together also in a very different way that refuses to leverage cult modalities on one another to do it, that the landscape of how power flows can really change.
Hmm. Hmm. How inspiring. I love that. I love that. So really, again, and this is what I say over and over in the book, the only way out is in. We can't solve this by looking at the systemic level. We have to solve this starting at the individual level. You can't heal the world without healing yourself. I'm just, you know, really just threading a few things out there for people to consider. All of this looking outward, if you just look at what goes on in the truther community right now, and all of this research that's being applied to how the world works and what's going on out there and what happened in history and Tartaria and mud floods and all of this bullshit, none of it matters. It doesn't matter even if it's real, which it's not. It's just another perception. What matters is this inner work and the ability to harness our power as creative dreamers. If more people in these groups were actually putting their energy into this area, boy, I'd like to see what would happen then.
That's what I spend every day trying to facilitate. That's a deep, meaningful purpose for my heart. I'm really glad we're talking about it, because we all have much better options than we have yet been able to recognize. And people get their energy tied up in we've been lied to, and what are we going to do about it? But like, we could be building together now. And the most severely disabled people, the most severely disabled and invisible survivors of violence, have only found ourselves able to survive because we chose to do that. And we've been inviting people into it for years, but a lot of people, like, they're not sure what that means. It's like it's like they've got their hands around the bars of their cage, but the whole backside is open. There's no cage back here. But we're like, we gotta fight against the bars. We have to release ourselves from this prison. But if you put down the bars and you turn around, and you're like, there's this whole world that we could be
Yeah, you
interacting with.
walk
We could
away.
be
You
making
just
things
walk
better.
away.
Yeah. And people don't realize it because they're so used to having to fight all the time. But there are people demonstrating now that we can just build beautiful things and have beautiful lives. So I'm into that. That's what I'm on board with.
But let me ask you, Max, how would people who want to be a part of what you're doing, who would like to learn more about what you're doing, what what are your structures and resources for that, whether we're talking websites? I mean, just give us a little bit of overview, because, even for me, I'm a little like, I mean, we've had these conversations, but I'm not sure how this network that you're talking about actually operates, because sometimes I still feel like it's more like an underground kind of situation. And I'm wondering what your vision is moving forward for the network to become.
So our main location to find out what's going on is intuitivepublicradio.substack.com. That's called Max Memo. That's me introducing everyone to the work of our groups in the Intuitive Network. We primarily work on Telegram because most of our community members all over the world are in positions where, because of cult behavior and trafficking influences, it's not safe for them to be in a context with other people a lot of the time. Most of them can't even be in the small groups that we facilitate. Most of them have to stay in contact with me or others individually, because it would be too dangerous for them to try to be social when they've got to preserve their lives at this time. And then we have a lot of community members that participate in small private groups. There are a lot of small private groups in the network that we're working on various things. We're helping one another. We're processing challenging situations. We're building together. We're implementing amazing solutions that really move me. And then we have public groups and public channels on Telegram where anyone can come and join us, but you have to introduce yourself, because we might not be able to tell if you're a bot if you don't introduce yourself. So we remove people that don't introduce themselves after a period of time, basically. But the public spaces on Telegram can be found via Intuitive Public Radio on Telegram, is a channel on Telegram. And then we have a main public chat attached to that is at t.me/community IPR. So those are the main ways that people connect. But I spend a lot of time being the concierge person to help people be introduced to it. And anybody that we're talking with, we're looking for ways to help one another, so that somebody who comes into the network is bringing their strengths and their skill sets, but also their needs and their vulnerabilities. And like, how can we help anyone who comes to be in community with us? And how would they like to help out, so that we're all tending the community body, a real community body, not a cult community body. So that's what we're practicing together every day. And I would love to introduce anyone to it who reaches out to me on Substack or on Telegram. I'm t.me/Max Morris on Telegram. So yeah, that's my day to day. Thank you for asking.
Oh yeah, my pleasure. I've been aware of the Telegram group. I have a kind of policy I don't like to be part of groups where my work is being discussed a lot. So I just tend to stay away, and people can say whatever they want to say, but that's one of my reasons for keeping my distance, not because I'm not actually interested in what you're doing, but I don't necessarily need all that chatter when it happens, and sometimes it happens. So I hope you understand that.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We have sort of different ways of moving items forward. Telegram is where we're doing a lot of that collaboration. There's some kind of machine happening here. And it's kind of making my brain glitch. We basically meet anybody we're in contact with where they're at. So I've found some really wonderful ways of getting to continue conversations with you. And because of the conversations you and I have had, I can bring so much amazing energy from my new understandings of my being in contact with your work, of me having discussed various things with you privately. I get to bring new energy into our group environments, so that, like, even if you're not there with us, you're there with us, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Um,
I think a little bit.
that's really, it's really real for us. Most of the time, what we encounter is that people don't want to be in conversation with survivors of these intersections.
Yeah,
We speak very forthrightly, but we've also had experiences that really scare people who have not had some kind of understanding about that. So it's been very rare until recently for people to stay in conversation with us. And you've been in conversation with us for a while. That's a
right.
really, that's a big deal. And that's something we have really appreciated. And it's pretty rare for someone to be able to do that who isn't themselves in a really serious situation, like where they can't find help anywhere else. That's what we say in the network, is that we built a network for survivors who can't find help anywhere else, because that's what happened. But you've been present for us in ways I think you probably don't totally realize. So at least I can start to tell you more about it that way.
Oh, that's great. Well, I've been very interested in what you're doing, and certainly my growing awareness of the world cult and the trafficking patterns that we've been discussing has inspired me to learn more from you over time, and really just be receptive to your perspective. And I feel like I've just learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate your persistence and your presentness with me.
My pleasure. My honor. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. I know that we we probably are at a good stopping point here. I feel like this is a lot of information for people to digest, and maybe this could be a prelude to some other discussions where we unpack more pieces of this dynamic that we've been talking about.
Will you also tell our viewers and listeners how they can find your recently released book, The World Cult and You, so that they can come join us more closely in these really important conversations?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also over on Substack. It's saulluckman.substack.com. And basically, the way that works is I have a post, and it's linked to in different ways. There are various places, the about section or the main image that you would click on, or there's a list of premium and exclusive content over on the right sidebar, or wherever you can find where to click, which is the post that has the link to the text. But you have to do a free trial or a paid subscription to be able to access the link. And when you've done that, then you can scroll down. There'll be a section that'll say, like, how does this work? And here's the link. Click over and then read the book. That's where I'm also going to be putting the audio visual book. I'm going to be sharing a few chapters of that, and then that's going to be paid beyond the first few chapters. And I'm going to serialize that project, and eventually I'll combine it into one big book and have that as a separate offering as well. So that's the Substack world, and I've got a bunch of material. I've got, Snooze is over there, the Cali the Destroyer. We didn't even get into that, but that's all about sacred ecology and the mother and our connection with the earth. That's a biggie. So there's a lot of content there that I would really encourage people to just, spend some time about, either with your free trial, just really sort of binging, or, if you could spend a month or two behind my paywall, I think you would actually enjoy that and benefit from it. And then the kind of companion to my Substack is my YouTube, which is Crow Rising, crow like the bird rising. And I post a lot of the video content there that also shows up over on Substack. It's just easier for some people to access the YouTube videos, and you can embed those very easily on your websites and that kind of thing. And I do playlists. I'm doing a playlist for the Snooze audio video book, so you can just play through the playlist and that sort of thing. That makes it very easy. So I've put the YouTube and Substack worlds together kind of as bookends to give people the textual and the video all as one kind of large package.
I think
So that's my world.
it's important to realize that somebody who purchases an online course might pay $20 or $40 or $60, and that gives you a month or 2 months or 3 months in Saul Luckman's Substack, where there's such a huge amount of materials. So spending time with that as a learning project is more than worth the amount of money that it costs to connect with it. And of course, we have a lot of discussions about how do we help people connect with this when they don't have that available. But a lot of people are spending their money on much less life affirming activities than learning these modalities. So I think it's a really, really good offering, and I hope that a lot of people take advantage of it and flow resource support to the work that you're doing.
I really appreciate that. I mean, obviously, it's important for me to have this be remunerative to the to a certain degree. I'm not trying to get rich, or believe me, I would be doing something else. I would be in banking or somewhere. I mean, but that's not my dharma. I wanted to simply say that there's other options too. There's the option to gift subscriptions to other people. So if people have resources and they would like to uh, share that. I'm not exactly sure how that works in terms of, I know people have done it, but I haven't followed through myself to know exactly if you have to, I think you probably have to know to whom you're gifting the subscription when you do, and then you put in their email or whatever, and that's the person who then has access to the content behind the paywall for some period of time. But just know that there are ways, and if you ever want to discuss other methods for funding people who are having issues with their funds, then I have ideas about that. So if anyone's out there who would like to help with that kind of project to get this material out to more people, I would be more than happy to have that discussion.
I'm really interested in those discussions too. We should keep talking about all of that because we have to support platforms doing this work. We can't just leave it to chance. It really matters to people's survival. It really matters to people's ability to repair their physical bodies and find one another in a very chaotic, challenging world instance. So I would really like to work more on that with you and others. Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do it, and maybe we'll even come up with some basic concepts that other people could adapt to their circumstances. Because I don't think there's a very easy way of doing what we're talking about yet. There's not, there we keep seeing very interesting interfaces show up. I mean, we had PayPal for a long time, but then there was like buy me a coffee and these other ways of being supported. But and then there's crowdfunding, of course, but I've not yet seen an easy way of doing what we're talking about, where people are basically trying to give resources to other people. That's an entire platform. If someone has the knowledge, the skill in coding and whatnot, that would be potentially a very successful platform.
That's a conversation very close to my heart. We do a lot of work in the Intuitive Network on that subject. I am so excited about having more of those conversations. We are co-creating the solutions.
I mean, I've thought about this a lot, Max. We are co-creating the name of this platform in my brain as a kind of working title is Pay It Forward with a 4. Pay it forward so you're not in copyright problems. So pay it forward, and that would be it. So you're basically paying it forward. There's a movie that you can watch on this subject, and there's a whole topic here that we don't have time to discuss today, but it's servant leadership. We're really talking about servant leadership, where we're actually starting where we are as more like the adults in the room, and even that isn't a perfect state of being, because we're certainly learning and growing all the time too. I would speak kind of globally for most people who are interested in this kind of discussion. But then there are people who are in need or who are younger and don't have the resources, and if they could be given those resources by a pay it forward kind of program through a servant leadership where your leadership is to serve. That's the whole, there's a whole school of psychology around servant leadership. So that would be an interesting discussion to have. But that's what I'm talking about here is creating a platform that would be based on concepts having to do with servant leadership.
Yes, more of that, please.
Yep.
Very
Yep.
much.
Well, listen, I'm going to let you go. This was a lot of fun, and I look forward to our next chat.
Me too. Thank you for spending this time with me today.
Ditto, ditto, onward and upward.
I'll see you soon.